Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. Nicole Holland here. And today I'm joined by Nadine Artemis. Very excited to have her here from Living Libations. And yeah, Nadine, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
For sure. I always love having interesting people on, and it makes it more fun when they're neighbors. So we're like, I don't know, 9 hours apart or 8 hours apart or something like that, but still neighbors here in
Yeah,
Ontario. Yeah. So, to get things started, why don't you let my listeners know a little bit about where you're at today in your business and how you're serving and supporting people?
that sounds fun. So here we are. This year was a big year for us because we had a fire about 5 years ago. And so we had to rebuild. Obviously, that was a big moment. So we had, luckily, I mean, within 24 hours of the fire, we were offered this place that we could use. And that's been great. And it was great. It was so great. And then we had to just slowly regroup and save. And because we were about to build our new headquarters, like the week after the fire, it was all lined up, architectural drawings done, permits gotten, the backhoes lined up, and the fire happened. So luckily we had, and we lost everything, like every drop of oil, every computer file, just everything. And it was attached to our house. So it was like all of it and all personal items gone. So that was a moment. It was also like, oh my God, I was like, do I have to redo the last 20 years over again? But you don't. Like, you also realize that your business is beyond the material goods that you had, because that's all that we lost, but we still had the love of what we do and all of our clients and all that kind of stuff. And the website, it didn't burn. That was really good. And so, yeah, so then we just had to kind of regroup, get, functioning again, and then resave and rethink about the headquarters again. So while it was a setback, with hindsight, I can also see how it also propelled things into the future faster, because we didn't have to wait a year to even build the unbuilt headquarters. We had a bigger space the next day, so to speak. And then we regrouped. And then I also was like, oh, actually, I think I want to build the headquarters in a different part of our land. And so that, changed. And then the building up bigger and bigger, in the architectural, when we were in that phase. And so then 3 years ago, we started that construction project, and it took a lot longer because then we were building a 22,000 square foot building. But it was so great to design a building according to how we uniquely make everything. And so that is just such a blessing. And also to be able to create something that's a beautiful place to work in. And so I felt like that also seemed like a lifelong dream. So it was finished in the spring, and we moved in, and it is as glorious as we thought it would be. So that's where I feel where I am right now, just finally like feeling like the fire is really done. We are in the building that we've created to really take us into the next 50 years. And that's a good place to be at.
Indeed. And I've seen pictures and it's just spectacular.
Thank you.
Um, it'd be lovely to come. I was actually
Yeah,
looking at like how far you are, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should come up and visit. And then I'm like, it's a little far for right now for
in the
Nadine.
summer.
Yeah, yeah, in the summer. So for our listeners who are not familiar with Living Libations, can you just talk about a little bit what you do and what you do offer
hmm
to people?
When I was 18 years old, through understanding like what I was eating and what I didn't want to eat, and reading labels at the supermarket, which just quickly led to me going, oh my God, and all my body care is just total BS. And I was deep, like as a teen, it was just like, my bathroom was crazy. I was also the youngest, so I had like everything that my mother and sister didn't want, and like bottles everywhere, and I would mix them and take my Christian Dior white eyeshadow and mix it with some lip balm. And so I was always doing that and like giving my friends makeovers and everything. But on another level, I'm not really like that girly or that makeupy. But I just love mixing things and playing with them. So I kind of had that going on, and I did a science fair project where we created L'air de temps with essential oils. And then I get to university and I discover this whole thing kind of about food and body care. So from that moment forward, I never ate processed food again. I always ate organic, and I was always making my own skincare. And then I started making it for friends and family. And also at the same time, I was like sourcing the world for the purest ingredients, because I wanted to, it first came from like reading books, and some books from the 1800s and modern books and all, a whole range, and going and reading about materials like ancient Egyptian recipes, or just like somebody writing about immortelle or neroli. And I was like, I need these things. Like, what does it smell like? And if I combine it like they did in ancient Egypt, will I get a whiff of what life was like back then? And it was such a juicy time before we just really recently in the last 100 years, or since the 19th century, where synthetics, they didn't even exist before. And before that, what we applied to our body was pressed from petals and sluiced from sap, and had such a life quality to it. And so that's where I was really interested in. And when I understood the BS in beauty care, that's really when my relationship to beauty and health got really renegade. And I started to care for myself in a whole other way. So I'd make all these formulas, and then friends and family loved it all. So I knew when I was going to graduate that I was going to do something else, and I was going to start a store, because I felt like there was no place that had that purity. And I also wanted to really highlight all the beautiful essential oils, because they're like this palette. And so I thought of an idea to have like a blending bar and custom making perfumes and all of that. So that was in the 90s in Queen Street in Toronto. And but I also really wanted to get out of the city and sort of start a whole different life and be in nature. And that was great too. That's when I met Ron, who's my husband, and he was so keen to work too, because he was just like, let's work together, let's do stuff. And I was kind of like, oh no, this is a romantic phase, we can't kill it that early. But it actually really worked out, because what I came to realize too is that when you are a couple, you do need to have a vision for your life, and you do need to work together, right? Even if you do separate jobs all day, living together, there's work. Like after the ecstasy, the laundry, right? That's the book. And so, yeah, so that was really great. And I found really easy to work with, because it's like, oh my God, we totally have to work together anyway. And then we got to spend so much time together, which was so fun, like all day, every day. And that was just so great. And then we finally, got up. We saved enough to move into the country and put a tiny down payment. Like you only needed 5% back then, and that's all we had. It was before the the stock market crashed. Anyway, so we got our land, which is here, and we got here and we were like, oh my God, like this land will take care of us for the rest of our lives. There's just so much beauty here, and so much to discover. It will take decades to just get it all, feel it all, and experience it all. So here we are. And then that was really great, because that was also like e-commerce started, because we also were like, I had also read a lot before I even met Ron about like, like the books like The Good Life, or like living on, like just like how do you kind of move to the country and not being dependent on an economic system. So that whole time I didn't want to be dependent on the economy, even of Toronto. But then with the website, with internet growing and e-commerce, it was so perfect timing to move to the country. So that was good timing. And then things grew and grew and grew.
Amazing.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh,
that's so
you
strange.
Can't.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. So that's wonderful. And so going back to the 90s,
Yes.
how did you wind up even starting your business? Like when you were doing all of this for yourself and your family and your friends, were you as a young person charging them money, or like at what point did you realize, realized you wanted to have a store, you wanted to have a business, but how did that come to fruition?
You know how part of it came to fruition because then I was like importing things because they weren't available anywhere. So then I was like importing, and then I had to buy more because I was like buying directly from distillers, and I love that. And then yes, I was making blends and concoctions, and people were buying it, and I would and that was really fun, and it grew and grew. So I had that going for me while I was in university. And then I had oh my God, I feel like I was so young, like little me. But I even did and then I'm thinking I made my own little pamphlets. I called it Artemis Essentials. And I had I made waitress legs and lip balm. I would put in little recycled film canisters. And all kinds of, I had many different phases, and I kept making and making and exploring, and people really wanted my stuff. And the waitress legs, like people were getting rid of their spider veins, and it was really fun. And so, yeah, there was that moment. And then I took an aromatherapy course just to kind of ground it all in. But then I was like teaching the teacher about purity of oils. And then all the students were buying from me all the essential oils and stuff. And I also knew I didn't want to like practice on people. Like I wasn't taking that to like massage or start that. I was like, no, I want to, yeah, I can't remember the exact moment a store thought came in, but I was like, I'm going to do a store. And then that was a whole learning moment, because it was like looking, I remember I got like a student, because I was I a student? I think I was a student when, yeah, I was in my last year. So I was getting a lot of the stuff ready for like when I was free from school to then open the store. And I feel like I got like a student loan, I had to go to the bank. I had to make a business plan. I wore like a little suit. And then, you know, they would match, if I had $7,000, they would match $7,000. And I did get a loan from my mother, and she like had interest on it. And she's like, it's got to be equal for your brother and sister. So, but that was good, because it's like, I think it's a good money lesson, you know? And yeah, and I just, you know, and then you start the store, and I'm painting and renovating, like doing everything by hand.
Nice. And then, so you decided to go sort of off the grid, or not off the grid
Yeah,
completely,
not,
but
yeah, but
more into nature in the country.
yes.
Did you, at that point, were you already online selling your product?
Yes, but we didn't have an e-commerce site, because I remember like back then, I don't know what it would be now to start from scratch, but it was like you'd have to spend about $10,000 to get the shopping cart active and stuff. So we just did one where you could email your order. So we had it all, and then just select your stuff and then email. And then in 206, luckily some friend was just like, you know, it's time to e-commerce it. And that was really, and then I was like, oh no, but like if there's more orders, like, because it was like really just Ron and I beyond our capacity. But then it was so great, because you're like, oh, it's like doing a lot of the work for me, and I'm waking up and there's
Just
an
doing the
order.
stuff you
Yeah,
like, right?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was fun. But, and then, yeah, internet, that's like an ongoing, I mean, your website, it's such a fast moving situation these days. And it does seem like every time you migrate, whew, or at least because we have so much data and so many SKUs. So that's a fun thing of a modern business.
Yeah.
Just like keeping up with your IT is very
Yeah.
important these days. Yeah.
And these days you have a team that takes care of a lot of this, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah. Including like an in-house IT person that I was like, are you sure you have full-time work for them? And oh yeah, we sure do.
Awesome. And then do you have multiple brick and mortars as well
We
outside of?
actually only have one.
Okay.
Yeah, which is in Venice, California. Because, you know, I mean, internet is so strong. Like, uh, it didn't seem like it was necessarily needed. But then, you know, really probably of the whole world, our densest libations nation is in that area of California. And, you know, it's fun. It's fun to go there and stuff. So we had a great opportunity, and it
Touch.
was like, why not?
Yeah,
So it's been
that's
fun to
awesome.
actually have a store again, because, yeah, I haven't had one since I was in my 20s. And then it's like, oh, it's really neat. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I bet it's fun for people to go and like touch and smell and just be
Yeah.
there and experience it. It's one thing to know what you want and order online, or even just to, I mean, and I studied aromatherapy actually
Oh,
years and
fun.
years ago. Yeah, another lifetime. Um, and so it's like one thing to be able to read all of the information about it and something new.
But
It's
yeah,
to
to
try
smell the
it.
quality, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, and people fly, because there's LA airport right there. I mean, people fly in from all over to go to the store. They make a point. But actually now, I forgot, because we have our new building. We have, but we just do it about 4 times a year, because really we are working to make all the libations every day.
So you open it up 4 times a year for people
Yeah,
to
and
come
then we do
in.
a tour. But we have like this beautiful showroom that we have
Mhm.
pictures of it on Instagram, and it's been so fun to build that and have it be this center of our building.
Beautiful. And so, what are some of the challenges that you first faced when, or maybe not even first because you've been online for a while, but what are some of the challenges you find with owning an e-commerce business?
Oh, so yeah. That could be a whole podcast. Well, early on, it was like, oh, you should have your own server. So you're not sharing it with four other businesses. And if it crashes, you crash. So there's that kind of game. Security patches, do it regularly. um, really just making sure you're communicating. And then really, I think it's important to up your customer care because, you are missing that in-person interaction and you really want people to feel really taken care of, even if it's through an email. And I feel that we have we have great customer care. And then we also have another part of our customer care that's really deeply, deeply educated on the products. And because we get crazy wild questions and serious questions, and we're really dedicated in like answering those questions or helping them find a path to get the answers that they need.
Awesome. And what are some of the other things that you've found to be, I don't know, challenges isn't the right word, but maybe some learnings that you've had as technology has expanded and it moves so fast, right?
It
And
moves so fast. Yeah.
serving people all over the world. I believe you
Yeah.
have clients and customers. Yeah. So like in that way of running this business that's based in the country in this beautiful location, and you're like you're there and they are halfway around the world. Any other kind of things you've learned that may be of value to my listeners to hear your tips and takeaways on, that you've come across in the last years?
Well, I love all the emails we get from all over the world. It just makes it also feel like a cozier world, where we can all connect. And again, I think customer care, understanding time zones, when you can be available for clients, making sure you have a good speed on your internet so things load well in other countries. And of course, doing a complete browser check and like PC and Apple check and mobile check and iPad check. You got to check it all. It's really important. And one thing I've learned is I have been slow sometimes in between migrating sites, but also it's because just finding the right web developers, because right, that's definitely an area that most entrepreneurs are not going to be able to do themselves. And you're definitely in a situation where it's kind of like going to the mechanics, right? And and
You're at
so
their
just
mercy.
yes, so totally at their mercy. And yeah, so it's really important to when you're, because we've vetted web teams and still had very interesting experiences that really actually, yeah, we just had a recent one and it's
Heartbreaking.
yeah, and yeah, it's your digital assets, right? It kind of just seems like air, like it's a website, does it exist? And it's like, wow, when
Yeah,
you've got people going in the back end.
I was
Yeah.
just speaking with somebody else the other day who had invested a very large sum of money into hiring a team
Mm-hmm.
and made a lot of promises, and they're in the contract, and they
Mm-hmm.
had to pay 1/3 of the contract up front, 1/3
Mm-hmm.
midway through, and 1/3 at the end. And they paid the 1/3 up front, and then the people disappeared and won't respond to them, and so they
Oh,
have no way of changing anything or doing work on their own site or having their team members log in because they they bought like their all of their setup is from this third party
wow. Yeah.
reseller who now has disappeared. And it's
Oh
just
no.
such a it's really just i think I think every business owner goes through this, especially in the
Yeah.
online space, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately more than once with
Mm-hmm.
outsourcing and hiring. And
Mm-hmm.
um, do you
We
have any?
we had a situation like 5 years ago. Oh, and this happened the same day our everything burnt down. It's a good day.
Nice.
Where the web developer people redirected our, I don't know if I have all the tech down, but redirected our server, the FTP, to their server. So like kind of hijack the site. And then so then I didn't even know there was the Business Development Bank of Canada. Do you know about them? They're a crown corporation and ready to serve. It's a great thing that we have in Canada. And so we met them through the process of building our building, because our accountant was like, do you know about them? They would just love the work you're doing. You're like an ideal Canadian company, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, hey, we have this web development program. And what we do is we work with you for a few months. We analyze everything, and then we build the work requirement document that you need for your website. And then we go through Canada with all the web developers that we vetted, and then we interview them with you. And then we are there to make sure that they fulfill the contract. And I'm like, great, this is that. Now I feel like I can confidently go ahead. We had all of that, and still major contractual issues, major things that were not done.
Wow.
And that all happened in October, and the site is still, we had to just lock them out. Our sites, I mean, it's fine from the outside, but in the back end, it's like, and we don't have an affiliate program right now, because because their programming was so wonky. And I'm trying to say this in my
The
nicest
most
language. Yes.
appropriate, yeah.
So, yeah. And like there's so many issues. So anyway, yeah. And we were fully paid.
Yeah.
And we still had to walk away from that situation.
Unbelievable. And this is after going through
And the
Crown
BDC was
Corporation.
with us all the whole time.
Crazy.
Yeah.
This is something as much as these stories are unacceptable, and I think they need to be told, because I think a lot of people, when they're running their business, they keep a lot of things quiet. Like, obviously you don't want to look like a disaster when you're out in front of people, and you want to look like you've got it all together, but things go on behind closed doors and people don't talk about it. And I think this makes a lot of people feel alone, like they're
Oh, yeah,
failing at
yeah.
something, or they're not good enough. And the truth is, there are so many people out there taking advantage. In fact, actually earlier today, I was talking with someone about this as well, who had spent $40,000 for $48,000 for some coaching from
Mm.
people who
Mm-hmm.
were experts at, one was for funnels and one
Mm.
was for messaging. And I had very similar experiences when I started as well, where people talk about what they can do, and if you just work with them or you follow their system, you'll have this outcome, and you're excited because you believe them,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, yes, I'm incompetent with this, I don't know, I'm not a web developer, I'm not a marketing person, I'm not a this, I'm not a that, I don't know any better. So you come highly recommended, you've been vetted, other people say you're amazing, yes, I'm in. And then you find out, like, they never should have taken you on for one reason or another, or they're just not in integrity, or whatever the case may be. But then I think a lot of times we look at ourselves and say, well, it works for everybody else, what are we doing wrong? Or they were highly vetted, or they came from, other people had great success, so why not me? And then
Mm-hmm.
we just kind of sweep those things under the rug. And I appreciate having this conversation, because I think everybody needs to know that you're not alone. Like, this stuff
Yes.
happens, and it shouldn't happen.
It
And
shouldn't. And there's that, everything can start off in that honeymoon period.
mhm,
You know, it's a new thing. We got a
excitement,
plan. Yeah. And
yeah,
then shit hits the fan.
yes. So have you kind of, I know when things like this happen to me,
Mm-hmm.
especially with hiring, I've hired so many contractors, and um, each time I guess I feel I get a little bit better. Like, I learn something, and um, that's how I try and look at it. And so in this experience that you've had multiple times with the website, is there anything that you have kind of recognized that that maybe you and Ron kind of put together and said, okay, the next time when we're looking for someone, here's specifically what we're going to look out for?
Yeah, that's a good question. First, it's always also like, okay, remembering honeymoon phase, and then really thinking like, if something goes awry, how will there be accountability? So that's key. And then on real tactical or practical levels, um, you know, a lot of web companies will have a team in another country, like India, and that's fine, and it's great that we can all work together on one level. But we asked them, we said, like, you know, that's not a good sign. They're like, no, it's our team in India, like it's our people. And we're like, okay. But I could see that definitely caused issues. You know, there would be, I think there was 3 people on that side, and of course they're doing all the actual work. I don't know what the people in Toronto are doing. And then one person in the team is like maybe the manager, and he might know English, and then what if he's sick that day? So then you're having like, anyway, you know what I mean, communication breakdown. So I would suggest, seriously, just have people in your own country build the website, because I think that's where a lot of issues can, because if they don't really, if that the team that's hiring the other team in the other country, if they don't really have great excellence in the way that they're running their actual business with communication and management and all those things that really your average company doesn't necessarily have that going on, that whole human resources happiness thing. And so I would say check their whole parameter of their team. And even though we went with somebody that had a reputation, and it certainly was a fair price, and I don't mean a fair, I mean it was we were going right higher, not quite middle, not quite the most, but now because we spent a whole year rebuilding the site, and besides the fact that it was 6 months late and all of that, we actually now have to rebuild it again because it's so weird in the back end. Like if you know, it's just so weird. And so now we had to go to that level of the people building it, but it's all Canadian based. And they have really good partnerships with the people. Like we use Magento to run our shop, and so they have a really good partnership with that. And then also I was really thinking, like, even, you know, obviously the internet is changing fast, like, right, and Google and algorithms and all of that, and the internet has shown that it can take down a democracy to certain extents, and hacking and all of that. So I was like, you know what, I do feel like having that barrier, those web people that really know, right, the ins and outs of your website, it just really feels like this day and age, it's just like you want to have that down, because this whole internet Wild West is just going to go, you know, I can't see anything, nothing's going to actually put in place that's going to slow it down or whatever, you know, even, or the hacking and all of that. Like it's only going to expand, I think. So we have to get, you know, just get stronger. And that's why I say even things with security patches, things that in your normal entrepreneur brain, because you're creating or you're the author or whatever, you're not thinking those tech things. So hand it off and get the pro.
Yeah, it's just
Even though the
finding the
pro
pro, like
doesn't mean
figuring
it's going
out.
to be smooth.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
how to figure out who's like, and I've had people come to me too who they will come to me. So I'm not cheap. And there's a reason for it.
Yes.
And so people have come to me inquiring about services before, and then they're like, oh, yeah, no. And then they go with somebody else. And most I never hear from again, even though they may not continue with the service from somebody else. But
Mm.
some will come back and say, okay, you know what? I should have hired you in the first place. And then it's like, okay, let's look at where you're at. And, you know,
Yeah.
and I think we do that too. I mean, I know I've done stuff like that with service providers or platforms that I thought, okay, well, you know, this is, or even in hiring people, right? Well, this is like a bit out of my comfort zone and reach, so I'm going to go with like somebody that's good, but
Mm-hmm.
not quite that expensive, I would say. And sure enough, more times than not, I find that the time, energy, and money I spend at the good level,
Mm-hmm.
I have to redo it all anyhow. So I've
Yeah.
definitely learned that lesson too of like going with the great level. It's just a matter of really understanding what that great level is and
Yes.
spending the time doing due diligence. And even then there's not a guarantee. So I think that's really good of like putting things into place about accountability, like you said, and just really
Hmm.
identifying, okay, so we're going to do this, and what's the communication going to look like, and if
Yeah.
this happens, how will we rectify it, and if this goes 6 months late, what is the consequence for you? Because the consequence for me is that I'm not getting the service that I'm paying for. So
Hmm.
how are you going to make sure that that doesn't happen? And
Yeah, and even to participate in those contracts, because often it'll be like, okay, here's our standard contract, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is too, and the contract's for the big moment when it doesn't work out. But what about all the micro moments and the undeliverables? How is that going to be dealt with? And so, yeah, map out some accountabilities and consequences before it happens. And if that freaks them out, then great.
yeah. And even I think too, it's like I think about that on both ends. Like, I mean, if someone were to come to me and say, they look at my contract and they say, okay, well, we need this and this and this and this and this from you. I mean, I might say, okay, and this is how that's going to be priced then, because you're
Mm,
expecting all this
yeah.
extra, but I'm willing to do it. Or if it's just unrealistic, I'm not willing to do it. But even with my standard contract, I will negotiate it with companies and with people, because in my mind, the contract is there to protect both sides. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but generally we don't have those micro check-ins. And so yeah, I'm enjoying this conversation. It's actually reminding me of some things I can do better when I hire people as well.
It's
And
reminding me too.
yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully it's reminding the
Yeah.
listeners as well, because we know this stuff, right? But then we
Yes.
forget and we get so optimistic again. We're like,
Yeah.
hey, my
Yeah.
problem's going to be solved, my life's going to be
Totally.
easier.
Yeah. And even managing the building, obviously, we had a site manager and stuff, but that was epic, right? Like days where there's like 40 people on site, like building the building. And wow. And I
I
feel like
know.
I got into the whole thing because I just wanted to like move drops around the world,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
wild.
such a thing. Like it's, I think as a culture we understand it's not the 1950s. We're all about like, what do you love, follow it, do it. Which is so great that I was able to tap into that early on. And I was definitely a kid that was like, I'm not working 9 to 5, I'm not working for anybody, I'm not working in an office tower. And I knew a lot of the knots. And then the passion came with what I was making, and then they obviously just melded together. But you go, because I'm like, okay, I discovered jasmine, that's all I want to smell all day, that'll be my job, I will surround myself. But of course you get into it because you want to share it, and then you got your beautiful hobby and all you want to do is be in the jasmine all day. But then of course you've got to take care of insurance and spreadsheets and lawyers and rent and all that stuff. And so that's the thing, I think, as an entrepreneur, where you want to keep that love of why you originally got into it. And so that's what you have to really tend to as an entrepreneur, and not let you got to deal with the other shit, sorry, but you don't want to let it take away that original ember that made you do this in the first place.
Amazing. So speaking of which, as entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, well, I don't know, I shouldn't say oftentimes, I want to say always, but sometimes I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to,
Somebody.
somebody's going to say not always, none of my people, but as entrepreneurs, we're always raising the bar. So it's like we have that vision of where we want to be, and we reach it. And even I think before we reach it, we start thinking, okay, what do I want? What do I want? So it's like, because it's almost like just the journey is the the fulfilling part often. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can play in the jasmine, and once we're playing in the jasmine, it's like then we find the ylang ylang, for
Yeah,
example. And it's
exactly.
like, wait a minute.
They got to be together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's kind of on the horizon? Is there something that Living Libations is looking towards in the next 3 to 5 years?
That's a great question. And it's funny because I'm not actually I don't think that way. And I don't have like goals in like sales or we're going to do this or whatever. What I do know is that products I will always create. I feel like like I don't even need to think about what to do because to me that's guaranteed. It's just flowing and it's like that poetry of life that keeps going. And actually I feel so fulfilled. I feel like I grow and expand really just for our clients and for our team because it's like really getting what's been really fascinating because I feel like in the first while, like first at least decade, that it was about like me. It was like a triangle, me and the product and the client. It was about creating the best product I could and then having a great client experience. And then Ron came along and then it was like still kind of a triangle because it was like him and I and the product and the client. And then people started coming to work with us. And then it kind of became this square because became a whole other reason to be, because out here in this small town, it was like people really liked working here with us and stuff. And it was like, and then you're like, oh, they really like it. And it's like, well, we kind of got to do better for them so we can offer more. And then that keeps growing. And then I have goals of like, well, if we're going to work, then I want to create like as much as humanly possible, a really good workplace and innovate. How are we going to work together? So I feel like that's sort of been in the past 7 years, a new journey to really create a company where people can work there if they want, because I feel like a lot of the people on our team are like, well, we're good. And I feel like as long as they're working on the planet, it will be there. And it's like, well, we got to take care of these people. So then it's about, really building a strong foundation so you can have like benefit packages and meditate, before lunch. So that's kind of where I feel like I'm at. And then I really just trust the universe to take us on the rest of the journey. As long as I keep having a good foundation and doing what I do, it will just bloom.
So this is woo woo and, maybe presumptuous, but I don't know. I just get the sense that retreats are in your future.
Oh, well, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, there are things I dream. Actually, I really want to create although I'm also like, I think that's why I'm pausing too, because I forgot, because I built something. I'm like, and while we're building it, I'm like, oh yeah, and then I'm going to build this and that. And then after we built it, I was a little like, I don't need to build anything for a minute because it's like, that was so huge. Even though, we had obviously I didn't lift a hammer or anything, but it was like so intense to build the building. But actually, I really would love to create out here on another little lake, a beautiful world-class spa with like little cabins around the lake, and really have the latest and greatest in for dental care, holistic dental care, and just the most holistic ways to, like not like just a beauty spa, but really like a health spa. I would love
Mhm.
that. And have like ozone pools. So, we're not doing even the salt and chlorine and beautiful
Amazing.
restaurant and everything. So yeah, I forgot about that one.
Well, you'll have to keep us posted because
Yes.
I would love to come and experience that when you have it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about, I don't even know. Like I feel like there's another question I should ask, and then I feel like I don't know. I just feel like we should have coffee.
Yeah. That would
Coffee
be
or
great.
wine.
Yeah.
So, um,
Actually,
so
not that I drink coffee,
you
but
don't
like I
drink
know what you mean, a hot beverage.
a hot beverage.
Yeah.
You drink mushroom tea.
Yeah. Do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of that, or do you drink wine? Have you heard of Dry Farm Wines?
Oh, I haven't.
Oh, you got to check that out. Dry Farm Wines. It's okay. I don't want to mess it up here as
Yeah.
I'm speaking, so I'm gonna
Look at it.
look it up real quick as I'm
Okay.
gonna.
I'll drink like a glass of red wine like a couple of times a year.
It's actually Halle Berry recently did a
Oh.
endorsement for them, and they're up to really neat things. And I don't want to get the language wrong because
Sulfite free.
uh-huh
Yeah.
dry
Biodynamic.
I'm going to get the words right because I was speaking with with Todd from there about wine, and I was saying, "Oh, you should come to, Southern Ontario, to the Niagara region. Um, Wine is, such a great place." So, okay, the only health-focused natural wine club in the world. This is our wine club.
Wow,
So all natural and additive-free, lab-tested for purity, sugar-free, and low alcohol. Um,
that's great.
Yeah, there, and I've had it. It's fantastic. I wish I could. Okay, so we curate the finest, sustainably grown natural wines. We lab test for the highest standard of health you enjoy with people you love. Um, and they get it from sustainable family farms. They go all over the world
That's
to source this.
amazing.
Yeah.
Things are
Okay,
just
so
getting so
here,
innovative, don't you feel? Like there's just so much like micro invention and innovation now. It's just amazing.
yes. So I'm going to keep on reading real
Yes.
quick because I want to make sure I do them justice.
Yes.
Um, Unlike today's commercialized and processed wines, this is real wine, nothing added, nothing removed, pure, artisanal, and deliciously clean. It's sugar-free, low sulfites, low alcohol, myotoxin and mold-free,
Nice.
no additives, dry farmed, old vines that are 35 to 100 years old, hand
Wow.
harvested, wild native yeast, small productions, gluten free, paleo friendly, keto friendly, low carb friendly, mouth-wateringly delicious, and naturally or biodynamically farmed.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So,
I can drink again.
yeah. Yeah, so that's something you might want to have to connect the two of you when you're ready for your retreat center. I don't know if you can
Yes.
have wine at the spa or not, but to get you in touch.
Thanks.
So cool. Um, yeah, so I guess I've really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing about the background of, or not the background, but what happens behind the scenes in
Hmm.
really in business. And yeah, is there anything else that you feel you would like to share with the audience that I haven't asked about?
Well, I feel just the word intuition came in. And so I guess like I feel like if you are an entrepreneur, you are intuitive. So get down with that, get in touch with that and let that guide you. Because as with, even if you're not an entrepreneur, I mean, the influx of what can come in from the external world is huge. And you can get whiplash from people's suggestions, and you just always want to stay the course and find that inside guide that will be making all of your decisions.
Could not agree more. So
Lovely.
wonderful. Nadine, if people want to continue the conversation with you, if they want to check out your libations, what's the next step? Where can they go and how can they continue the conversation?
Well, our website's livinglibations.com. You can drop us an email there. And we've got Instagram, which is just, you can see all the pictures of our beautiful land and our new building, and, the regular YouTube, Facebook, and my books on our site. It's also on Amazon and everywhere.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.